The emergency beacon cut through the void like a scream. Research Station Cathera, perched on the edge of the Veil Nebula, transmitted its desperate plea across every frequency known to galactic civilization. The message was simple, horrifying, and broadcast in 47 languages. SOS, under attack by Void Hunters. Requesting immediate assistance. 300 civilians aboard. Station failing. Dr. Maya Oren pressed her palm against the sealed laboratory door, feeling the vibrations of plasma fire striking the station's outer hull. Through the reinforced window, she watched sleek black ships dance between the research platform's defensive turrets like predators toying with wounded prey. The Void Hunters had emerged from the nebula's depths 3 hours ago, and Cathara's modest shields were already failing. "Still no response?" asked Kem, the station's Zenthari communications officer. His blue-scaled hands trembled as he monitored the emergency channels. The reptilian alien's usual calm had cracked hours ago when the first distress calls went unanswered. Maya shook her head. "The hegemony says they're assessing the tactical situation. The Trade Federation claims their nearest fleet is 6 days away. The Crystalline Collective." She gestured helplessly. "They don't respond to organic distress calls." Through the station's central corridor, panicked civilians huddled in emergency shelters. Researchers, traders, diplomats, and their families. Representatives of dozens species who had thought themselves safe in this remote corner of space. The Void Hunters cared nothing for politics or neutrality. They harvested technology and left only empty hulks drifting in space. Another impact shook the station. Emergency lights flickered as power conduits overloaded. In the distance, Maya heard the distinctive whine of hull breaches being sealed by emergency systems. They had minutes, maybe an hour before the station's structural integrity failed completely. "Wait." Kem's head crest rose in surprise. "I'm receiving a response. Unknown ships, bearing 27 Mark IV. They're moving fast. Really fast." Maya rushed to the sensor display. 3 contacts had appeared at the edge of the system, accelerating, at rates that should have been impossible for ships of their size. The computer struggled to classify them. The designs matched no known configuration in the galactic database. "Who are they?" Maya asked. Kem's translator crackled as he opened the communication channel. The response came immediately, spoken in accented but clear galactic standard. "Kithra Station, this is Captain Rick Olatunji of the UES Relentless. We received your distress call. Human fleet is en route to your position. Hold tight." The word human sent a chill through both aliens. Everyone in civilized space had heard whispers of the species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. They called their world Earth, though the galactic databases listed it as a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that no rational species would evolve there, let alone achieve spaceflight. Humans were legends, stories told to frighten young aliens, creatures that had evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them, where the weather itself was a weapon, where massive predators hunted in packs and the very plants were toxic. The few species that had encountered them described beings of impossible endurance and terrifying adaptability. "Did he say human fleet?" Kem whispered. Maya stared at the approaching contacts. The Deathworlders had heard their plea when the entire civilized galaxy had turned away. 3 small ships against a Void Hunter strike force. It should have been suicide. But as she watched the sensor display, she found herself hoping for the first time in hours. The humans were coming. The human ships materialized from hyperspace like avenging spirits, their angular hulls scarred from battles no civilized species could imagine. Captain Rick Olatunji stood on the bridge of the UES Relentless, studying the tactical display with the calm focus of a predator evaluating prey. Beside him, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Torres coordinated with their escort vessels, the Destroyer's Lightning Strike and Midnight Runner. 12 Void Hunter ships, Torres reported. Standard pack formation. They're using the nebula interference to mask their approach vectors. She paused, consulting her readouts. Station's shields are at 15%. Hull breaches on multiple decks, Rick nodded, his dark eyes never leaving the display. Time to evacuation completion? At current rate, 2 hours minimum. The station wasn't designed for rapid personnel transfer. "The Void Hunters won't give us 2 hours." Rick opened the general communications channel. Kithara Station, this is Captain Olatunji. We're beginning immediate combat operations. Prepare all available shuttle bays for evacuation procedures. Dr. Maya Oren's voice crackled through the static. Captain, you only have 3 ships. The Void Hunters have 12 ships. Yes, ma'am. We can count. Rick's tone carried the dry humor that had kept his crew sane through countless impossible situations. Torres, signal the pack. Standard Deathworlder greeting. The 3 human vessels broke formation with a precision that defied physics, where any rational species would have maintained defensive positions and called for reinforcements. The humans accelerated directly toward the Void Hunter fleet. Their weapons systems came online, not the elegant energy weapons favored by most civilizations, but crude, effective kinetic systems that hurled metal projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. On Kithara Station, the assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as the impossible happened. The first human salvo caught the Void Hunters completely off guard. The enemy had expected either surrender or a futile defensive gesture, not an immediate aggressive response from a numerically inferior force. "They're actually attacking," Kem whispered, his scales shifting to display amazement. 3 ships attacking 12. The UES Relentless rolled through a spiral that would have liquefied most organic beings, her railguns spitting tungsten penetrators into the lead Void Hunter's hull. The enemy ship staggered, its elegant curves scarred by impacts that bit deep into critical systems. Before it could respond, the Lightning Strike and Midnight Runner flanked it from impossible angles, their coordinated fire turning sophisticated alien technology into expanding clouds of debris. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Oren. "How are they maneuvering like that? Those acceleration forces should kill them." The answer would have horrified her. Inside their ships, the human crews endured G-forces that would crush most aliens into paste. Their bones, evolved under Earth's crushing gravity, held firm. Their cardiovascular systems, adapted to function in their homeworld's violent weather patterns, kept blood flowing to their brains under accelerations that would cause most species to black out instantly. Captain Olatunji grunted as his ship pulled 8 Gs through a turn that brought them behind another Void Hunter. His vision grayed at the edges, but his hands remained steady on the controls. This was nothing compared to the atmospheric entry he'd survived during the Battle of Kepler Station. "Contact bearing 047, Torres called out, her voice strained but controlled. "They're trying to flank the station. Midnight Runner, you're free to engage. Lightning Strike, maintain overwatch on the evacuation corridors." The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves, each ship supporting the others while maintaining their individual killing potential. They didn't fight like any civilized species. There was no elegant maneuvering, no adherence to accepted tactical doctrine. They fought like creatures that had learned warfare on a world where hesitation meant death. The Void Hunters, for the first time in their predatory existence, found themselves being hunted. The galaxy's response fleet finally arrived, to witness something unprecedented in recorded history. Void Hunters in full retreat. Admiral Korvex of the hegemony battlecruiser Infinite Majesty stared at his tactical display in disbelief as the elegant alien predators fled from 3 scarred human ships that shouldn't have been able to threaten a single enemy vessel. "Report," Korvex demanded, his 4 arms gesturing sharply at his bridge crew. "The humans have destroyed 6 Void Hunter ships and damaged 4 others," his tactical officer replied, mandibles clicking nervously. "The remaining enemy vessels are withdrawing to the nebula. Station Kithara is secure." Through the viewports of the assembling rescue fleet, 17 ships from 6 different species, the aliens watched the humans work. Their vessels moved in patterns that violated every principle of space combat taught in military academies across the galaxy. They didn't maintain formation. They didn't preserve their lines of retreat. They fought like berserkers, throwing themselves into impossible situations and somehow emerging victorious. Captain Rick Olatunji's voice cut through the communication channels as he coordinated the final evacuation. "Kithara Station, we've got your last shuttle clear. Station personnel, prepare for complete evacuation. We're not leaving anyone behind." "Captain," Dr. Maya Oren transmitted from the refugee ship that had taken her and her research team, "our structural engineers say the station can be salvaged. The damage isn't as extensive as we feared." "Negative, Doctor. Our scans show cascade failures in your primary support systems. This station has maybe 30 minutes before total collapse. We're evacuating everyone. Admiral Korvex opened a channel to the human captain. Captain Olatunji, this is Admiral Korvex of the Galactic HFY. Our engineers concur with the station personnel. The structure can be stabilized. There was a pause before Rick responded, and when he did, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Admiral, with respect, your engineers don't have experience with combat damage to civilian structures. We do. This station is coming apart, and we're not gambling with 300 lives. The statement hung in space like a challenge. The assembled fleet represented some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, their engineering knowledge spanning millennia. Yet this human captain, from a species barely a century into space travel, was dismissing their analysis. Then, the humans proved their point. The UES lightning strike moved alongside Cathera Station and extended docking umbilicals to sections the station's own sensors had marked as stable. Within minutes, those sections began showing critical stress fractures. How did they know? Asked Commander Vass of the Zenthari cruiser Silver Dawn. His science officer studied the readings. Their scans went deeper than ours. They detected microfractures in the station's superstructure that our sensors missed. The human sensors are crude, but they're specifically designed to detect structural damage. The truth was simpler and more disturbing. Human sensors were designed by a species that lived on a world trying to kill them. Every human ship carried equipment capable of detecting the tiny signs that preceded catastrophic failure. Because on Earth, the difference between recognizing danger and ignoring it was the difference between life and death. As if to prove the humans right, Cathara Station suddenly shuddered. Emergency systems screamed warnings as support beams that had seemed stable began to buckle. The civilian crews who had remained aboard to salvage equipment found themselves trapped as corridors collapsed and bulkheads sealed. Without hesitation, the 3 human ships moved in. Their crews, wearing environment suits that looked primitive, compared to galactic standard equipment, forced their way through twisted metal and toxic atmosphere to reach the trapped aliens. They carried cutting tools that worked when elegant energy weapons failed, and breathing apparatus that functioned in conditions that would kill most rescue equipment. They're going back in, Admiral Korvex observed, watching the humans disappear into the dying station. The structure could collapse completely at any moment. They said they wouldn't leave anyone behind, Commander Vass replied quietly. I think they meant it. The galaxy's finest watched as the Deathworlders did what civilized species considered impossible. They risked their lives for strangers, people they had never met, from species they had barely encountered. And they did it without hesitation, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. The multinational rescue fleet found itself in the unprecedented position of taking orders from creatures they had dismissed as dangerous primitives. Admiral Korvex watched his tactical display as Captain Rick Olatunji coordinated the evacuation with the casual competence of someone who had done this before, many times before. Hegemony ships, we need you positioned at coordinates 77 Alpha. Your tractor beams are strong enough to stabilize the station's rotation, Rick's voice cut through the communication chatter. Zenthari vessels, your medical facilities are the most advanced. We're transferring injured directly to you. Captain, Admiral Korvex interrupted. The Hegemony fleet does not take orders from Admiral. Rick's tone carried no anger, only tired patience. Right now, we have 47 people trapped in a collapsing structure, 63 injured requiring immediate medical attention, and a Void Hunter scout ship that's been shadowing us for the past 20 minutes. You can either help or you can maintain your dignity, but you can't do both. The silence that followed was deafening. Every ship in the rescue fleet had heard the exchange. The human captain had just told the most powerful military force in this sector to choose between pride and lives. Commander Vass of the Silver Dawn broke the silence. Captain Olatunji, Zenthari medical bays are standing by. We're transmitting docking protocols now. One by one, the other ships fell in line. The humans had somehow become the de facto commanders of the rescue operation, not through threats or political maneuvering, but through simple competence. They knew what needed to be done, and they did it. Dr. Maya Oren found herself aboard the human ship Midnight Runner, watching the rescue efforts from their crude but effective command center. The ship's corridors were narrow and utilitarian, designed for function rather than comfort. Everything smelled faintly of recycled air and human sweat. but the crew moved with an efficiency that put her station's emergency procedures to shame. "How do you do it?" she asked Lieutenant Commander Torres, who was coordinating with 6 different species simultaneously while monitoring the structural collapse of Kythera Station. "Do what?" Torres replied, not looking up from her displays. "This. All of this. You've been in space for less than a century, but you're running this operation like you've been doing it for millennia." Torres paused, considering the question. "Where we come from, everything is an emergency. Our weather tries to kill us. Our animals try to kill us. Our planet's crust shifts and cracks without warning. You learn to adapt quickly, or you don't learn at all." Another shudder ran through the dying station. The human rescue teams had been inside for 40 minutes, operating in conditions that would have killed most species within minutes. Their primitive-looking equipment continued to function, while more sophisticated tools failed in the toxic atmosphere and crushing gravitational stress. "Team 7 to Midnight Runner," crackled a voice over the comm. "We've got the last group. Engineering section, compartment C7. They're alive but trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead." "Copy, Team 7. What's your cutting time?" "Problem is, the bulkhead is supporting what's left of the ceiling. Cut through it, and the whole section comes down." Torres exchanged glances with Dr. Oren. It was an impossible situation, the kind of problem that required sacrifice. Someone would have to stay behind to support the bulkhead while the others escaped. "Team 7, this is Captain Olatunji. What's your assessment?" "We need someone to hold manual structural support while we extract the civilians. It's a one-way job, Captain." The human captain was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was calm and matter-of-fact. "Understood. Begin extraction procedures. I'm suiting up." "Sir, negative. I'll handle the manual support." "Team 7, you have families waiting for you back home. I'm the captain. This is my responsibility." Dr. Oren grabbed Torres's arm. "Stop him. There has to be another way." Torres looked at her with something approaching pity. "Doctor, this is what we do. This is who we are." She keyed her comm. "Captain, request permission to draw lots for the assignment." "Denied. I'm not gambling with someone else's life when I can prevent it myself." Across the rescue fleet, aliens listened in stunned silence as the human captain prepared to sacrifice himself for people he had never met. It was beyond their understanding, a level of altruism that their civilizations had never developed, never needed to develop. But the humans weren't finished surprising them. "Belay that order, Captain," came a new voice over the comm system. "This is Chief Engineer Sam Park aboard the Silver Dawn. I've been analyzing the structural collapse patterns." Rick Olatunji paused in his preparation to join the rescue team. "Go ahead, Chief." "The support failure isn't random. It's following the original construction joints. The Kythera engineers built this station using modular techniques, which means the collapse is predictable." Sam's voice carried the confidence of someone who had spent years studying how things broke. "If we can simultaneously cut through 3 specific support beams and install temporary braces, we can create a controlled collapse that opens an escape route." Admiral Corvex listened with growing amazement as the human engineer outlined a plan that his own specialists had dismissed as impossible. The timing required would be measured in fractions of seconds. The coordination between teams would need to be perfect, and the margin for error was non-existent. "Chief Park," Admiral Corvex interjected, "our structural engineers calculate a 7% probability of success for that plan." "Admiral, our structural engineers survived on a world where earthquake prediction meant the difference between life and death for millions of people. 7% odds are better than we usually get." Dr. Maya Oren watched from the Midnight Runner's bridge as the humans implemented their impossible plan. 3 teams positioned themselves at critical points throughout the failing station, each carrying cutting tools that looked brutally simple compared to the elegant plasma cutters used by advanced civilizations. But those simple tools worked in conditions where sophisticated equipment failed. "Mark!" Captain Olatunji's voice cut through the static. "Execute in 3, 2, 1, execute!" The station shuddered as 3 cutting beams fired simultaneously. For a terrifying moment, it seemed as though the entire structure would collapse, catastrophically. Then Chief Park's temporary braces engaged, channeling the failing superstructure's mass away from the trapped civilians. "Extraction complete," Team 7 reported. All 47 civilians accounted for. Were clear. The assembled rescue fleet watched as the last human team emerged from Kithara Station, just as the structure finally gave up its battle against physics. The research platform that had housed 300 beings for 5 years collapsed into twisted metal and venting atmosphere, but everyone aboard was safe. Impossible, whispered Commander Vass. They turned a certain death situation into a complete rescue. But the humans' greatest revelation was yet to come. As the evacuation ships prepared to depart, the Void Hunter scout that had been shadowing them finally made its move. The sleek Predator ship emerged from the nebula accompanied by reinforcements, 8 fresh ships, intent on finishing what their pack had started. All ships, this is Admiral Korvex. Prepare for combat operations. The Void Hunters are— Negative, Admiral, Captain Olatunji interrupted. Maintain position around the civilian vessels. Human ships will handle the threat. Captain, you have 3 ships against 9. Even for your species, those odds are— Admiral, you're thinking like prey. Rick's voice carried a coldness that made even the battle-hardened hegemony officers shiver. We're not prey. We never were. The 3 human ships broke formation with movements that defied tactical doctrine. But this time, the gathered aliens began to understand what they were witnessing. The humans weren't just tactically unpredictable. They were applying lessons learned from the most dangerous environment in known space. On Earth, pack hunters didn't retreat when faced with superior numbers. They adapted. They used terrain, misdirection, and coordination to turn disadvantage into advantage. And space, Dr. Oren realized as she watched the battle unfold, was just another terrain for Earth's ultimate predators. The Void Hunters, accustomed to easy prey, found themselves facing something they had never encountered, a species that hunted them back. The final battle began with the humans doing something no civilized species would consider. They split up. The 3 human ships scattered in different directions, abandoning all mutual support and leaving themselves vulnerable to defeat in detail. Every military academy in the galaxy taught that this was suicide against a superior force. The Void Hunters, sensing easy victory, divided their own fleet to pursue the fleeing humans. It was exactly what Captain Rick Olatunji had planned. Pack Hunting 101, he murmured to his bridge crew as the UES Relentless dove toward the nebula's edge. Scatter the prey, isolate the weak, then converge for the kill. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Torres reported. 3 Void Hunters are pursuing us. They're gaining. Perfect. Chief, I need everything the reactor can give us. The assembled rescue fleet watched in growing confusion as the humans led their pursuers on what appeared to be a chaotic flight through the nebula's radiation fields. The elegant Void Hunter ships maintained their pursuit, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. Then the trap closed. The lightning strike emerged from behind a radiation cloud, just as the lead Void Hunter passed her position. At point blank range, her railguns couldn't miss. The alien ship disintegrated under impacts that turned its sophisticated hull into expanding shrapnel. Ambush predators, Dr. Maya Oren whispered aboard the refugee transport. They're using pack hunting tactics in space combat. The second part of the trap activated as the Midnight Runner, which had seemed to be fleeing toward the outer system, suddenly reversed course. Her captain had been calculating vectors for 20 minutes, waiting for the perfect moment when 3 pursuing Void Hunters would align themselves for a single devastating attack run. The human ship's weapon systems were crude by galactic standards. Simple. Kinetic projectiles fired by electromagnetic acceleration, but they were also nearly impossible to defend against. Energy shields that could deflect plasma beams were useless against solid tungsten penetrators, traveling at significant fractions of light speed. How are they coordinating this? Admiral Korvex demanded. There's no communication between their ships. The nebula interference makes real-time coordination impossible. His communication officer checked and rechecked his equipment. Sir, they're not coordinating. Each ship is operating independently, but they're all following the same tactical plan. It was something no civilized species could understand. Humans didn't need constant communication to work together. They had evolved as pack hunters on a world where radio silence often meant survival. They could predict each other's actions, trust each other's competence, and coordinate complex operations through shared understanding, rather than shared signals. The UES Relentless completed the envelopment by emerging from the nebula's depths, just as the remaining Void Hunters realized they had been separated and surrounded. Captain Olatunji's ship had been playing bait, leading the most dangerous enemies into the perfect killing ground. All human ships, weapons-free, Rick transmitted on a frequency the Void Hunters couldn't intercept. Let's finish this. What followed wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was an execution. The scattered Void Hunter ships found themselves isolated, outnumbered locally, despite their overall numerical superiority, and facing an enemy that fought with the ruthless efficiency of apex predators. But it was what happened next that truly amazed the watching aliens. As the last Void Hunter ship tried to flee, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, Captain Olatunji's voice cut through the communication static. Disabled Void Hunter vessel, this is the UES Relentless. Surrender and prepare to be boarded. We will provide medical assistance to your injured. The offer of mercy to a species that had never shown mercy to others stunned every observer. Commander Vass of the Silver Dawn spoke for the entire rescue fleet. Captain, the Void Hunters don't take prisoners. They don't offer quarter. Why are you? Because we're not them, Rick replied simply. We're human. The damaged Void Hunter ship's response was to detonate its remaining weapons in a final gesture of spite. There would be no prisoners, no mercy accepted. But the humans had offered it anyway, because that was who they were. In the silence that followed, Admiral Korvex found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about the species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. 3 days later, the rescue fleet assembled in the outer system to process the evacuees and file their reports. What should have been a routine bureaucratic exercise had become something unprecedented in galactic history. The first time anyone had successfully defended against a Void Hunter pack attack. Dr. Maya Oren stood in the observation lounge of the Hegemony flagship, watching the human ships prepare for departure. They had refused all offers of extended shore leave, declined invitations to formal ceremonies, and politely but firmly rejected attempts to study their technology. They were simply going home, as if rescuing 300 strangers and defeating a superior enemy force was routine. They're leaving? Admiral Korvex joined her at the observation port. The four-armed hegemony officer carried himself differently, now with a respect that hadn't been there 3 days ago. Captain Olatunji says they're due back at Earth for routine patrol rotation, Maya replied. Apparently this was just a standard deep space patrol mission for them. Standard. Korvex's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. They call this standard. Through the viewports, they watched the UES Relentless dock with a civilian transport to transfer the last of the rescued researchers. The human crew worked with the same quiet efficiency they had shown throughout the crisis, treating the aftermath as professionally as they had treated the emergency. Admiral, came a voice from behind them. They turned to see Commander Vass approaching, carrying a datapad that contained the preliminary analysis of the human ship's performance. What did your sensors tell you about their capabilities? Korvex asked. Vass studied his data with the expression of someone still processing impossible information. Their ships are approximately 60 years behind our standard technology. Their weapons are crude kinetic systems that should be easily countered. Their defensive systems are primitive energy shields supplemented by thick metal armor. And yet they defeated 12 Void Hunter ships with minimal damage. Because they don't fight like machines, Admiral. They fight like living creatures. Every maneuver was unpredictable. Every tactic was adaptive. Our combat computers couldn't model their behavior because they don't follow logical parameters. Dr. Oren thought about her conversation with Lieutenant Commander Torres. They don't follow our logic because they evolved on a world where our logic would get them killed. They think like survivors because survival is what they do. A communication request interrupted their discussion. Captain Olatunji's voice filled the observation lounge, carrying the same calm professionalism he had maintained throughout the crisis. Admiral Korvex, Dr. Oren, this is Captain Olatunji aboard the Relentless. We're preparing to depart for Earth. Before we go, I wanted to thank you for your assistance during the evacuation operations. Captain, Admiral Korvex replied, it is we who should be thanking you. Without your intervention, those 300 beings would have died. We did what anyone would do, Admiral. The statement hung in the air like a challenge to every assumption. The galaxy held about civilization, morality, and the nature of advanced species. The humans believed that risking their lives for strangers was what anyone would do, despite the fact that 17 other ships had initially ignored the distress call. "Captain Olatunji," Dr. Oren said suddenly, "would you consider remaining in this sector? The Galactic Council is forming a new rapid response fleet specifically to deal with Void Hunter attacks. Your expertise would be invaluable." There was a pause before Rick responded. "Doctor, Earth has 43 patrol fleets operating in 17 sectors. Every one of them has encountered situations like this. We appreciate the offer, but our responsibility is to our patrol routes. 43 fleets." The number sent a chill through the assembled aliens. The humans weren't just one patrol group that had stumbled across their distress call. They were systematically patrolling the galaxy, responding to emergencies that other species ignored or couldn't handle. "How long have you been doing this?" Commander Vass asked quietly. "Since we achieved interstellar flight, Commander." "Someone has to." The human ships departed as quietly as they had arrived, 3 scarred vessels disappearing into hyperspace without fanfare or ceremony. They left behind a changed galaxy, one where the civilized species had been forced to confront the fact that the primitive Deathworlders might be more civilized than any of them. Admiral Korvac stood at the observation port long after the human ships had gone. When he finally spoke, his words would be repeated in military academies and philosophical circles throughout the galaxy. "We called them Deathworlders because their planet should have killed them. We were wrong. Their planet didn't try to kill them. It tried to teach them, and they learned the most important lesson in the universe, that strength without compassion is merely destruction, but compassion with strength can save everyone." 6. Months later, the Galactic Council formally invited humanity to join the newly formed Galactic Defense Alliance. The humans accepted, but with a typical condition. They would continue their patrol routes, responding to distress calls regardless of species, politics, or probability of success. After all, as Captain Rick Olatunji had said, it was what anyone would do. But the galaxy was beginning to understand that anyone might be uniquely human.